Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a videocast and podcast from univrm.com. Today is one of our current event news articles titled Ron Paul for President, Grading on a Curve. During a slow news day, one watched U.S. presidential candidate Congressman Ron Paul at a campaign event. There are currently 4 candidates left for the Republican nomination to run against Democrat and incumbent President Barack Obama. After the Ron Paul campaign event mentioned above, we watched similar speeches by other contenders including ex-Senator Rick Santorum, ex-Governor Mitt Romney, and ex-Congressman Newt Gingrich, respectively. There is a real difference in the style of each of the candidates. Ex-Governor Mitt Romney is not a good public speaker and tends to drift around topics like a cork in the sea. Ex-Senator Santorum seems genuinely angry it is the 21st century and, well, putting aside the seemingly misogynistic nature of his remarks, comes across as wanting to lead a modern-day crusade against everything. Ex-Congressman Newt Gingrich, and we admit this is a visceral reaction, seems to have too much sugar in his diet and a very selective memory and use of what he terms facts. From a current event news perspective, Congressman Ron Paul, the only candidate to have served in the military and an ex-obstetrician from Texas, speaks rationally and consistently. One is not a big fan of President Obama. Does anyone else think they're Republican candidates created by Looney Tunes? The following are candidate Paul's policy stances. First and foremost, he considers himself a strict adherent to the U.S. Constitution, except where it has been modified from the original on a semi-selective basis. The amendment giving women the right to vote is okay, but others not so okay. Small government wants to eliminate the departments of Energy, Housing and Urban Development, Commerce, Interior, and Education, and other federal agencies such as the Department of Health, Human Services, and Internal Revenue Service, reduce the size of the CIA, and eliminate the Federal Emergency Management Agency. On the budget, in October 2011, Paul released a federal budget proposal for 2013 entitled The Plan to Restore America. The plan calls for cutting $1 trillion from the federal budget in the first year, along with the other measures which Paul said would balance the budget within 3 years. To achieve these ambitious goals, the plan would seek, following his plan, spending cuts. 1. Eliminate 5 cabinet-level agencies: Education, Interior, Commerce, Energy, Housing and Urban Development. Privatize the FAA and the TSA. Cut the federal workforce by 10%. Cut funding down from 2006 levels for all agencies. Food and Drug Administration cut by 40%, Centers for Disease Control cut by 20%, Department of Homeland Security cut by 20%, National Institutes of Health cut by 20%, Environmental Protection Agency by 30%, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration by 20%, cut the Department of Defense budget by 15%, and eliminate all foreign war funding. Freeze funding for most other federal agencies at 2006 levels, eliminate all foreign aid, eliminate international drug programs, substantially reduce foreign travel, eliminate international organizations and commissions, administer Medicaid and other joint federal-state social welfare programs, such as SCHIP, food stamps, etc., through block grant funding mechanism to the states. Repeal the 16th Amendment, which would mean no income taxes. On his revenue changes, cut the top corporate tax rate to 15%, down from 35%, allow companies to repatriate capital without additional taxation, permanently extend the Bush administration tax cuts, eliminate capital gains and dividends taxes, eliminate estate and gift taxes, in taxes on personal savings, sell federal lands and other federal assets to reduce the budget deficit to next to zero. Other economic and regulatory measures. Repeal the new health care law, known as Obamacare, as well as the Dodd-Frank and Sarbanes-Oxley financial services and banking regulations, cancel certain onerous regulations instituted under executive order by previous presidents, conduct a full audit of the Federal Reserve, seek competing currency legislation to strengthen the dollar and stabilize inflation by returning to the gold standard and eventually eliminating the Federal Reserve banking system. Social Security and Medicare commitments to older workers and retirees would be honored, while workers younger than 25 would be given the option to opt out of participating in these programs. The Veterans Administration would be the only agency whose funds would be maintained at current levels of growth. Federal, state, social welfare programs like Medicaid would be shifted from the mandatory section of the budget to the discretionary section, so that Congress would need to approve funding allocations each year. The president's salary to be cut from $400,000 a year to approximately $39,000 per year, the median personal income of the American worker, and congressional pay and perks would be slashed. Paul has stressed that certain essential responsibilities currently performed by agencies which he proposes to eliminate would be assumed by remaining agency, or in the case of the aviation management, FAA and TSA, transferred to the private sector. On Social Security, workers under 25 can opt out while continuing the current system for those over 25. Federal rules: defederalization of the healthcare system, removal of all regulatory rules on financial services, allow competition to the Postal Service, against all bailouts to any private company, and constitutional rights. In short, he is all for them. No regulation of the internet in any way whatsoever. Opposes taxpayer funding of campaign financing. Corporations are not people, but people should be allowed to spend their money however they want. On the right to keep and bear arms. Anyone and everyone can carry a gun, concealed or otherwise. On juries and tribunals, juries are tribunals and are to rule not only on the case, but the law behind the case, and are not to be instructed by judges. Habeas corpus. He would immediately return the right of habeas corpus. On the Patriot Act, he's against it. On the Real ID Act, he's against it. On domestic surveillance, he's against it. On conscription, or the draft, he's against it. On eminent domain, he's against it. On affirmative action, he's against it. On sexual harassment, against laws on it, advises quitting unless force used, in which case then other laws apply. On same-sex marriage, for a man and a woman, but the federal government should have no say in the matter whatsoever and left to individual states. On gays in the military should decide on actions of individuals, not mandated by sexuality. On abortion, against it, wants it left up to each individual state. On contraception, he's for and against it. It's complicated. Stem cell research, he's for it. Human cloning, unclear, seems to be for it. On capital punishment, against it at the federal level, but states should decide whether they are for or against it. On education, against any federal funding. On the environment, sell off federal lands and pay down the deficit. Environmental hazards to be self-regulated, or in short, removed from law. On health care, against Medicaid and Medicare except for veterans. On drugs, people can do what they want. On the Voting Rights Act, against it. On the Civil Rights Act, against it. On foreign policy, non-intervention, by which he means bring all American troops back to U.S. soil. On Israel, they're on their own. On Iran, he could care less. On Cuba, repeal the embargo. On the World Trade Organization, against it. On terrorism, against it of course, but supports letters of marque and reprisal authorized by Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. There are many more positions, and as all of the above political positions point out, from a purely political perspective, he is simultaneously to the left of liberals and the right of conservatives, depending on the issue. One grades Congressman Ron Paul ahead of Republican presidential rivals due to consistent positions on substantive issues, as opposed to his rivals ranting, raving, and nonsensical remarks, whether or not one agrees with his positions. There is a stark contrast between Congressman Ron Paul's political position and President Barack Obama's political positions. One is not sure how to sanely contrast the other Republican candidates, known for their wife's car, building colonies on the moon, and a return to the days of the Inquisition, respectively. Grading on a curve, a relatively new phenomena, and an unfortunate extension of the decline in accuracy, or in short, because so few can answer correctly, a curve of grading created to make those who did not do so well on a test not feel bad about being dopes. 10 people take a test with 10 questions. All but 2 fail to answer any of the questions correctly. The 2 people remaining each answered 1 question correctly. Prior to curve grading, all would have received a 10% or less mark out of a 100% score. Welcome to grading politics on a curve. This has been copyright 2012, univrm.com, trademarked, all rights reserved. At univrm.com, we create original content with humor and satire on current event news, opinion articles, economy articles, science current events, and our science fiction book series titled Change Hope. As an advertisement, please remember univrm.com offering our science fiction book series Change Hope, released as a series on a chapter and book-by-book basis like the old Amazing Stories magazine. Change Hope available in all ebook formats and as an audiobook. You can purchase by going to www.univrm.com/downloads/. You can listen to this article via podcast at the iTunes Store by subscribing to univrm.com or read it on Facebook at the UNIVRM channel. You can also listen or subscribe to our articles via videocast or podcast on YouTube on the UNIVRM channel. This has been a videocast and broadcast brought to you by univrm.com, and we hope to bring you more articles in future.